is 1:30. All right, so let's do, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the workshop for May 18th, 2023. It is currently 1:30. And before we dive right in, I want to welcome our two new council members. Glad y'all are here. It's good to see you guys. Congratulations. I'll mention something from the dais when we first get started, but glad y'all are here. I'm sure you're ready and ready to go. Understood it all. So very good.
How many pages? 500 and yeah.
Is it all?
So read every single page.
Front and back. All right. Very good. Then item 1 is public comments. All right, we have none. We'll move on to item 2. Item 2 is to discuss as may be needed any regular meeting agenda items for tonight. So council or staff, anybody have anything you want to go over in particular?
You know, I'm abstaining from,
Pardon?
I'm abstaining from the 11.
Yeah.
And that's on the regular agenda just for voting purposes unless you guys just in particular would like a presentation.
Zach, did y'all read the packet? Y'all have anything y'all want to go over? Everybody's okay? All right, moving right along then. Item 2 is to receive a presentation regarding second quarter financial results for fiscal year 2023. Ms. Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I am pleased to present the second quarter financial statements for the 6 months ended March 31st of 2023. Just an overview of our revenues for the 6 months ended, looking at the major funds, general fund revenues. And again, we're at 50% of the year complete. General fund revenues are at 60.9% of budget, actual 63.9 million. Water and sewer fund, we're at 43.53% of budget. Of course, in the summer months is when we have more water consumption and flows in the summer than the first 6 months. And then the hotel motel fund, again, at 60.76%. I got a few highlights to go over that on the hotel motel fund. And then our drainage fund is at 50.29%.
Tracy, I hate to put you on the spot, but on that hotel motel fund, running 61%, is that due to increased nights, or are we still have a little bit of the comparing it to previous years, maybe slow down with COVID, et cetera? Or are we really, is that a true increase?
It is a true increase. This is out of our simple economic indicator report.
Yeah.
It shows the blue, dark blue is pre-COVID FY19. And then the light blue and pinkish is more in the COVID period. But as you see, FY 2023, the increases exceeds pre-COVID and what we're doing now.
That's,
Your thermostat, you need me to someone, no?
yes.
Thermostat.
Oh,
You need me to adjust it? Someone
Sure.
has called.
A little bit. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well,
I wish it was bigger dollars, but that's encouraging.
yes,
Right?
yes, it is. And then just the occupancy rates, you can see the increase in those two
That's great.
compared to the historical. You jumped to the slides, Mayor.
Yep, I'm sorry. I'll be
It's
quiet.
okay.
Would you go back to the occupancy? I missed, sorry.
Susan, wait for the slides.
Okay, wait. So, okay,
See, in April of 2020, they dropped below 40%.
Yeah.
Above 30%.
sure. And the dark blue is pre-COVID
Mhm.
and we're substantially or definitely above that. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Just looking again on the general fund revenues, wanted to highlight a little over 70% of the budget is made up of number one revenue source is sales tax, number two is property taxes, and number three is our solid waste fees. And then, as you see on down the line, but those three revenue sources make up a little over 70%. Wanted to highlight our sales tax. Temple is on the far left. We're at a little over 14% and this actually goes 1 month further into April. 7 months compared to the previous 7 months of last year. The straight line is the state of Texas. We exceed the state of Texas and all the cities in our region. Our economy is still very strong locally. And Belton's some of that too, exceeding the rest of the cities in the region. Property tax, this just shows the percent collected through March 31, just to show that it's in line with what previous years, a little ahead of 3 of the years, but that is where it should be. And I just already went over the hotel motel taxes. Looking at expenditures, general fund is at 47.43% of budget, water and sewer fund at 48.32%, hotel motel at 45.74%, and the drainage fund is at 59.39%. And this also includes capital, so that's partly the drainage is not ahead of the 50%, but it has to do with capital expenditures.
Tracy, I'm sorry to interrupt again.
No, sir. No, sir.
On the sales tax, I saw percentage increase, but I didn't see any dollars. Did I miss that? Where you showed?
I just showed percentages.
Yeah.
I didn't show the dollars. I could look at, I don't have that pulled up, Mayor, but I know we're projecting.
On your over under chart, you
I
have
think-
dollars.
Okay.
I think she has it.
Hey, Tracy,
Oh, okay.
oh, wait, would you go back to, sorry, sales tax? How can we be so much beyond Waco? With
I
a
think-
mall, they have a big mall.
But it's, I think you're seeing the economy slow down some in the retail area. If you look at the city of Tipples and the city of Killeen, Georgetown,
Uh-huh.
they're more focused on, are concentrated on retail. And the city of Temple, a lot of it is from residential commercial developments.
That's it. Oh, yeah,
And-
you said this before and I keep forgetting that.
And also keep in mind that the percentage is a function of difference between prior period and this period, not that we have more sales tax revenue than Waco. We just have a higher percent of an increase. Is also something to keep in mind.
But we had a record year last year,
Yeah.
right? And here we are
Absolutely.
shooting that now by, is that 14%? That's not 109% of budget. That's 14% over this period last year,
Right,
correct?
but we're at 109%
Yeah.
of budget.
That's great.
I am in my forecast backing off and expecting some slowdown over the summer months, but it is 109% of budget.
Thank you.
Did I finish the expenditures? Yes. And now going into, this is at the second quarter, we forecast out where we think we'll end the year. In the year in the general fund. We're forecasting now that revenues will end the year at 108.8 million, which is 103.59% of budget, greater than budget. And that equates to a favorable variance of 3.7 million. We're forecasting expenditures to end at slightly under 95%. That equates to a $5.9 million favorable variance. And when you combine those two, it's a favorable variance of 9.6 million. And the next few slides goes into some of that detail. This chart shows over or under budget. And it has 2 years on it. It has FY23, current year, and the prior year. But on the far left, sales tax, we're forecasting it to be the highest. That's the biggest amount of that 3.7 million is 2.6 million of its sales tax. Not as much as it was over budget last year. Another, since interest rates have increased almost over 450 basis points. And we have our fund balance levels, interest income is we're forecasting is going to be over $1 million over budget. And then franchise fees includes our gas and electrical franchise fees. We did receive a one-time franchise fee payment for properties that were annexed over the past few years or past year. That's part of one that is over budget, and then just more kilowatts used in electrical, and the gas has a lot to do with the price of gas. You remember golf course used to always be on the right, now it's moved to the left, a good thing. And then we are recreation, some of their programs and different events are not meeting budget, but they're better shape compared to budget than they were last year. And the same with fines. And far right, solid waste, that has to do with recyclable revenues, very volatile market. And they are been down in the past few months. Now expenditures more or less than budget. Remember the revenues we're forecasting are going to be at 3.7 million greater than budget. And we're forecasting expenditures at 5.9 million less than budget. Majority of that is personnel costs. And then there is some operating expenses. But just a reminder, the general fund, our expenditures, personnel services are about 60% of the budget. So very heavy on the people. And I wanted to go into our vacancies in the city as of 3/31/23. We had 86 in the general fund, 9 in the water sewer fund, 4 in the hotel motel, and 4 in the drainage fund. And then I wanted to break that down by department. The police were short 29 police officers. And I've got that sorted in descending order, and you can read as you go down. I won't read them all to you.
I see the police, the 29 includes civilians as well.
Correct, yes. And then a few other departments here.
How many uniformed officers are we down? Chief, you know, 27? You got 29 vacancies and 27 are sworn officers.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
What's your full hire load?
D1 66 more.
About 15, 18% bad. Thank you.
You would definitely pass the police entry test.
Moving into our investments as of March 31, $372.4 million. 84% of that was in government pools, 9.58% in cash. We have some CDs, and we're starting to move back into agencies since the rates and ladder those agency funds since rates have increased. Is looking at a chart, historical rates, they were nearly at zero, or I'd say close to zero. Had a slight gradual increase, and then dropped again, and then we've seen them skyrocket or go straight up in a short period of time. And when rates rise, our portfolio is short-term in nature. We will usually lag our benchmark, which is the 90-day T-bill. Our portfolio currently is yielding 4.53%. A year ago, it was yielding 0.28%. So that's where we get the huge increase in the interest income. And just 20-something basis points below our benchmark. This just shows that same info, and then just what the pools are earning today. They're at 0.4 or 4.61, which is still pretty good compared to our benchmark. Capital improvement program, Every time I feel it, it's bigger. It's over $500 million now. 395 projects. Reinvestment zone, and this is by funding source. 34.6% of that is funded by the reinvestment zone. 29% is utility revenue bonds. Combination tax and revenue COs are 27.29%. And then on down the line, we show pay-as-you-go, some TxDOT Highway Safety Improvement Program dollars and designated fund balance. Looking at those, over $500 million of projects based on status, based on their dollars. 47.5% are under construction or in progress. Another third of those are in engineering, 11% in the planning phase, and 7.4% are complete. Last slide on the quarterly financials is the strategic investment zone program status. Since its beginning, there's been a little less than $2.2 million funded there. Expended, encumbered, committed to date is $9 million, leaving a balance of $250,723.
That's just for 250,000 left for 2023.
Yes, ma'am. And that concludes the second quarter financial statements. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How much is typically funded into the CIS grant category?
Each year,
It used to be like 150,000 a year,
Yep.
right? I think
typically,
it's
we've been
around-
doing 100, or y'all have approved 100,000 from the general fund and 100,000 from the reinvestment. Reinvestment zone also
Okay,
contributes 100,000.
you know, it used to be that,
50 was rollover then.
Yes, it's from rollover. And actually, it was more than that, and we had swept some of that back into fund balance.
used to be that money was gone, you know, in the first quarter or so. Are we seeing a slowdown? And I know we changed the matrix up some 2 or 3 years ago, so that may have impacted it, but are we seeing a slowdown of redevelopments in the CIS zones?
I would defer to Brian, if he online, because
I would say that we are not seeing as many large projects. We still do have several smaller projects. And I do think changing the way that projects were funded did have an impact. You know, we went from funding up to 50% to now we're doing up to a 20% match on qualified projects. One of the things that we'll talk about in the budget process is expanding out our grant program offerings to our neighborhood planning areas. So, you know, we feel like we have seen a great success with our strategic investment zones and feel like there's probably room for us to begin offering those types of grants in other areas of the community and for focus on both still commercial, but also add a residential component to help us continue to see revitalization in our targeted areas. So we'll talk more about that in the coming months, but that's something that staff will bring forward for your consideration next year.
Is it anticipated that the amount funded will go up once you expand it?
While we are so close to filing a budget, it's still too early for me to, I truly, I don't know yet what, we're not at that far yet.
Right. Okay,
So, we would want to do a careful evaluation whether what we have historically committed, we think can cover both programs, or if, you know, a slight enhancement to that would be necessary.
I think
the neighborhood-
once people begin to realize that that's available, especially with residences. I mean, I know the dollar amounts will be fewer per project, but I bet you do a lot more projects.
And that is, we've only had one conversation about it thus far in our budget
Okay,
process,
so
and it
it's
is very, there are a lot of details to work out. And for that reason, we don't want to overwhelm the system or, you know, it's also important to me that we're targeting our funds in a way that we're achieving projects that would otherwise may not happen versus just subsidizing things that were already gonna occur, like roof replacements and things
Right.
like that, so that we're using our money in a targeted fashion to incentivize something to happen that wouldn't otherwise occur or would be a financial burden for someone or would, cause a home to fall, farther into disrepair or something like that. So there's a lot more work that staff needs to do before we can bring, the proposal towards you. But I just mentioned that that's something they're
Yeah.
working on.
Well, good. That's interesting. Council, any other questions for Tracy or Brian? Very good.
Without knowing any more about it, obviously, it sounds like expanding to the neighborhood reinvestment projects is a really good idea.
Yeah, you will probably recall that that was one of the things when we had our strategic plan workshop a couple of, I guess a month or so ago, that made our priority list. So we will be working on incorporating that into the budget. You will to consider.
Will it be mostly external type improvements that will be brought
It's
forward?
focused,
Something that can be seen from the street?
that is our initial focus, yes, sir. Keeping in mind that Housing and Neighborhood Services has programs for
Sure.
low and moderate, and so for homes that
So
are
not adding to that
financially,
fund.
right, financially in need of interior repairs, we do have programs available as well.
Okay, good. Is that it? Right. Do you have anything else?
On item number 3, I wanted to make some introductions and then turn it over to, yes,
All right, then let me read it in. Item 3 is be a discussion regarding the fiscal year 2024 preliminary tax roll.
yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As we prepare for the budget for FY 2024, which our preliminary tax roll was released a few weeks ago. And I just wanted to show a qualification. This is preliminary and tentative. It's not certified. But looking at our preliminary values, which include the reinvestment zone values, and they change daily, and they may be a little bit different what you show here in a minute. I know they change. We're looking at a little over 22% increase in our ad valorem tax base. And at this time, I've asked Billy White with the Appraisal District of Bell County to come give an overview of the preliminary property tax roll and be available for any questions y'all may have. He also has his Deputy Chief Appraiser, Tammy Hubnick. She's the one that does a lot of truth and taxation calculations for us too.
She runs the show. Thank you very much, Tracy, for having us come out today. And thank you, City Council and Mayor, for having us. There's a few slides in here. We'll probably go over some of them a little quickly. They're just ones that are more general for some of the same information we give to the entities, the city managers and such. But want to go over a few things just about who we are and what we do, because not everyone fully understands what our job is and how we play a part in, obviously, your tax base, but the appraisal district, that's kind of what the Mannings we're tasked with currently. We're at 1,000 parcels. Our county, as you guys all know, is growing quite quickly. And right now we have about 52 full-time employees. This next year's budget, we're increasing to 56. Because as the county grows, our work is growing nonstop. All these plats that are being filed and deeds that are happening, values going up, protests, everything, houses that are being built, all that, the workload for the appraisal district. What's also important to note is that we also do the collection taxes. As she said, that Tammy, my deputy, does a lot of the collection side of it, but we, not all appraisal districts in Texas collect taxes. We are one of the largest that are contracted by the county and the ISDs and the cities like you guys to actually do the collection of taxes. So we also provide those services also. And this year, our budget for this next year is about $6.68 million for next year, which just as your budget is, most of it's personnel is where a lot of our budget goes into. Our board of directors that currently is there, and these are each appointed by different cities and such, depending on the size of the city. Jared Bryan, he's our chairman. He is appointed by all the other entities that are not listed specifically out there. And of course, these each are listed by the city of Belton, Belton ISD, Temple ISD, and I believe your guys' representative is Sam Fulcher, is the representative that you have appointed to the board of directors. And their main job is to obviously hire a chief appraiser and approve our budget. That's their main task as the board of directors. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Basics, just a full understanding, it's something that's always out there misleading, is that the Texas tax code doesn't give us any leeway. It tells us we have to appraise what we think is 100% of market value. Obviously, it's an appraisal, so that is an opinion, but it's 100% of market value. And of course, we're not part of the county or don't work for them. And these are some of the services we provide, other than just appraisal, tax rate calculations, maintain all the GIS, the parcel layers, quite a bit of work that we do there. And then, of course, so this is where we're at currently in our appraisal year. We're right around here in the summertime. We're in what we call the equalization protest phase, which is where we let everybody come in to discuss their property value, make any changes if we see fit, and also go before the appraisal review board and make any changes then until we get to a certified roll. So from the time April 30th, when we're required to get certified estimates to the city, to you guys, we have until July 20th to get 95% of our value to not be under protest. So obviously, most of our accounts, most of the properties in the county don't even protest each year. But all those that do, they keep coming down to a percent until we get 95% of them either signed off and agreed to a value or gone before the appraisal review board to our 95%. And that's why each year we don't always certify at the same date. It depends on when we get enough of our protests completed. So it's a mad dash to get through all the protests we can before July so we can get you guys value so then y'all can help set your budget and your tax rates. And then, of course, as soon as you get your tax rates set, y'all send those back to us. And that's when we send out the tax bills as soon as we can, October, once all the entities have set their tax rates and sent those to us. Then we do the collections the rest of the fall and winter. When other appraisal districts are taking time off, that's when we're busy doing all the collection of taxes for you. So homestead exemptions, I won't go into too much detail on that. So just to give you some idea of what you guys are paying for, because you guys as the city pay into our budget and are one of our customers. I'm sure city council members and such, you guys hear people talk about property taxes and other values. And it's important to know, I hear from a lot of county commissioners and everybody else call me quite often with issues, and most of the time we're able to resolve them. But what's important to know is that our staff we're dealing with, this is from last year up until April of this year, but included all of our protest period, which is when obviously people aren't always happy coming in. But considering that, with all the questions that we ask, we try and give a survey to every person that comes in. You can see for all these questions, we're at 97, 98% had excellent or good services. Not the ones you hear from all the time. We still get quite a bit of good service and good reviews. Obviously, our job is more to educate the public and to make them understand how we got to our values, what we can do for them, how to administer their exemptions and such. That's what we really try to do. So just so you always hear from those that aren't necessarily happy about it, there's a lot of people that are leaving the appraisal district, maybe not happy, but satisfied with what we're doing in the job and what we presented to them.
Mr. White, you skipped over the homestead exemption.
Yes, sir.
Where does the homestead exemption change from the 10% increase of that legislation that's in place right now? Do you have any information on that? Or
Well,
actually, it's not in place yet, I don't think.
The two different things and it's changing. I'm actually having a legislative meeting right now, but as soon as I'm done here, I'll hear more about what's going on. But I know right now they said the 10% or 5% cap on all properties is one of the, I can't remember which side, whether that's the center or the house side right now. That's what one of the proposals are. And that's supposed to be for all properties, I think, the last one I saw. So that would be everybody. And if it works the same way as Homestead does, it would be after you're in the property for the first full year. So even though this last legislation go around, they changed the homestead exemptions to, you could actually receive a homestead even though you don't live there January 1st. Your cap or the 10% part still doesn't take place until after you've been there for January. So if you move in July to a property, you're going to get to the 40,000 for the ISD, for instance, and whatever other entities give an exemption, but you don't get your cap until you're there for the next 4 years. So I think that's how that side that's presenting a 5 or 10% cap is going to be set off if they go that route. The other route, of course, is the 70,000 for the ISDs is the other option they're putting out there right now. So I think from what I hear, and you guys probably more deal with some of the legislators and such, but you know, they sound, what I'm hearing is a lot of this is going to go to special session for to make these decisions, is what it already sounds like. So I don't know how the effect's going to be. One thing, this is the first year where that new homestead is taking place, and that's what's a lot of people misunderstand about the cap is a lot of them are wondering why we went up more than 10% from last year. And they didn't live in the house as of January 1st the year before. And if you think about it in a way, if the house was being built last January, they moved in July after the house got done, we'd be capping a vacant lot from the year before. So that's where a lot of people think we can't go for 10% as they have a homestead area, but the cap doesn't take place for them for the next 4 year. Any more questions? Homestead? All right, I should just get that one, I guess.
House Bill 2, which is the one that would reduce from 10% to 5%, and then it's passed the House and it's in Senate committee, but hasn't been voted out of committee yet.
Does anybody have a guess or an idea as to which way that's gonna go?
Well, the Senate has the completely opposite idea of doing $70,000. They wrote that with to say who's gonna do what.
The Senate also has some legislation that would increase the, Tracy, do you remember it's like personal property exemption on the business side? So
Personal property, 25.
they have some competing goals.
Makes your job more complicated.
Yes. Now we can ask, you're not the first one to ask, because then, I try not to put a whole lot, we try to help legislators on our, especially our legislative committee that we have, tell them what these things could cause or what kind of work it could cause. But when it comes down to how to actually put these things in place, that's usually, we find out once they finally get done. I don't get too excited because you guys know as well as I do that legislation changes a lot from the first day to the finally gets approved. And we just try and see what's going to come up. So we'll see. I mean, if they do, for us as a president, if they do caps on every single property, that'd be good for us because then people will cap a lot more and hopefully people will not protest everybody as much, even if they don't agree with their height, they're going to be capped. So that could be good for us, but could be a little more stagnant, like they say in California, where everything is locked into sales prices too. So things get locked in a lot more. But not for me to say. I take what they do and what they tell us once they make the law and put it in place. Hopefully, try and interpret what they wrote. So customer service. So this is just some of the projects we did this last year. I told you that's our budget, which you guys pay into. One of the big projects that we do every year is we have our company that flies aerials. Every single year they fly aerials around the beginning of the year. This project at the bottom called Change Finder. And what it does, it looks at to see if any property changed from last year's photo to this year's photo. And they flag all the properties they think had a change in their property. So if somebody built a porch out there, it's going to show it, and the aerial is going to show it to us. They sent that back to us. This last year, they told us there was about 6,500 accounts that they saw a change in. So we go through those, and it's a lot easier than trying to look at every single person's backyard, or hopefully that everybody pulls a permit to build everything, because they do that in the city, right? They pull permits for everything. So we get your permits, but it doesn't mean they do all. So this helps us keep everything accurate. That's the main goal of these. You see, last year that project cost us $75,000 with our manpower costs, and it returned about $40 million in value. And at a 2.5% tax rate, about $1 million in taxes is on the tax roll from us doing this project annually. We also did a much bigger project called Sketch Check, which is the top one. And what it did is it took our drawings and it put it on top of the aerials. It said, does your drawing match what the aerial says? Is it right or wrong, or is something missing? We had never done this in our county before. Most larger metro counties like we are doing this every 5 to 7 years, maybe more, depending what kind of. So even if we're doing everything else perfect, we're still going to miss some stuff, but we've never done it before. It took us 2 years to get through that project. Part of the reason we're a little late getting our notices out is we want to finish that project up this year. It took over 7,000 man hours to get through, and you can see it, 44,000 accounts, which is one of the larger amounts that we've simply seen before in this project. And it returned about $124 million in value, about $3.1 million in tax at 2.5% tax rate. Pool finder, the same thing. We do that each year, and it may not seem like a lot, but each pool adds up, and you can see we do that each year, and that adds about $10 million in value. And each of these projects, it's important. It's always good to be able to get a return on what you're spending, but it's also important for us to have as accurate and equitable of a tax roll. That's what we're really striving for, because if a house in your neighborhood sells for $40,000 more than everybody else's, and it has a pool, but we don't know it, then we increase everybody's house at $40,000. But if it has a pool, now we know it, so we don't overinflate the rest of the neighborhood. So that's where we're trying to have all of our characteristics accurate in our system. So a pretty big project we did. And another important thing to note is that this is the 1 year return. These things are on the tax roll from here on every single year afterwards. So expect they would add that value, that tax dollars each year afterwards.
The pools you're discovering, I guess is the term, through the aerial surveys.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's. I think they have a program that looks for the algorithm of the color of the pool, and some of them are wrong. So they tell us 6,500 have pools. Actually, probably told us more than that. And then we go through and verify each one. Yep, it's a pool, definitely a pool. We add it to it. But it's a very quick process because it's not like measuring a house, figuring out what they added. It takes very little man hours to do that project. So some things say how we are graded. What I've talked to some other chief appraisers, and they say that the appraisal district is one of the most audited organizations in the state when it comes to it. We get graded obviously by people looking at our values, and everybody's going to tell us whether or not they agree with their values each year. We get a financial audit, we get a SOC audit also each year. And then we also get graded by the comptroller. Every year we get graded whether they look at our values or they look at what they call a MAP review, which is their method and assistance program. And they look each year, they go through all of our operations, our procedures, look at everything we've done that year, see if we're doing anything correctly in accordance with the code. They have pages and pages of questions. This is just the front page to say whether we passed all the questions. And they change it each year. They change it based off of if other districts are doing things correctly or not. And they find some of the district isn't doing it, so they add that question to everybody else. But we don't always pass with 100%. But this last year in 2021 or 2022, excuse me, we passed with 100% and said it meets all the standards that they require of us. And then, of course, in the other year, the even years, the odd years, the comptroller also grades us again on our values, the property value study, which I'm sure y'all heard of. So 1 year we get graded on our operations from the state, and the next year we get graded by our values. So last year in 2020, last year we did this was 2021. This year we'll have a property value study, and we passed in 2021 with exception of Temple ISD, which we did appeal, and we were able to pass it. Not always our appeal is successful, but we were able to pass the appeal that year. This year we'll get told in late January. Is typically when we get told whether or not we pass the property value study. Instead of going to grade and decide what they think the value should be, tell us if we have had them enough. Each year, the state and the comptroller, whether it's because of what they're doing or just what's going on in the markets and such, but each year they've failed more and more school districts each year the past couple of years. So our budget, this just shows you, we're talking about some of the labor drivers and such and some of the changes. You can see just this is just from last year, from 2021 to 2022, how many more lots we've had drawn up this year, how many more deeds. Everything has increased quite a bit. And this is what we're asking for more in our budget this year and more employees because we just can't keep up. We've tried our best to make efficiencies in every place we can, but now we're at the point where we need people to do some of that work. So this just shows where we're at according to other counties and how we fit in. We always try to make sure we're not spending more than others or providing a good service compared to what other counties are. These counties are others that are similar in size to our county. That's why we pick these. You can see these are with 2021 budgets. That's all the information I have from them. But even with 2021 compared to our 2024 proposed budgets, we're still well under most of these other appraisal districts, which I'm sure they increased their budgets this last year or two also. And of course, important to note also is that the black ones, Lubbock and Midland, out of all these other ones that are in size, they're the only other two that do the collections operation. So we're even cheaper than other appraisal districts that don't even do collections. All they're doing is appraisals. They're not doing any collection side.
Is there a reason that abutting appraisal districts don't appear on the chart?
Which ones? I'm sorry.
Abutting ones, close by?
McLennan's actually quite a bit smaller than we are. And Williamson's quite a bit larger than we are. Williamson, I think, is about 260,000 parcels. I think McLennan's about 130, 140,000. We're at 182,000 parcels right now.
Okay.
So, I mean, I usually try to compare to ones that hopefully have the same amount of operations.
Right.
The one difference that most of these don't have, with the exception of maybe Nueces, most of these other ones aren't growing like we are. They're not the I-35 corridor and other things that are hitting the growth. I think Nueces is growing quite a bit also, but they're not hitting the protest levels and the I-35 corridor where the market's just going crazy like it is in our areas. So like I said, I usually try and pick ones that are similar in size. And this just shows what we've been proposing since back to 2013. As the levy's been going up each year, how much has been levied by the city, the ISDs, and the counties. The last 2 years, I estimated only 5%, which is probably less than what we'll actually do with all the new values growing up. But you can see as the last few years, we've actually been going down our cost per levy. This last year or two, we're increasing. It's mostly because of the increase in personnel, but we're still underneath where we're at 2013. So we've been staying pretty steady, even though we're collecting more taxes, values going up, levies going up. We're still costing about the same per dollar of levy throughout the whole time. I can't remember which slides I had left in here. So this just shows protest levels. Obviously, I don't have any information for this year because we still haven't received all our protests, but you can see each year as the market goes up, our months of inventory in residential inventory in the county, as you guys know, is gone down to extremely low levels. It's gone back up a little bit this year, but as that's happening, our market's been going up, and of course, protests are going up with it as we raise values. last year we had about, if you include our inquiries, which is what we're doing now, we had about 24,000 protests and inquiries last year. Each year it grows. This year, I think it's actually right before we left, I updated our stats and we're about 8,000 in right now. And our protest deadline for most of the properties this year is going to be next Friday, May 26th. So we'll have a better idea in about 2 weeks. And the less protests we have, the sooner we can get certified and turn the appraisal roll or the tax roll over to you guys to determine your tax rates and budgets. Let's get past all. So this just says what others are saying on the market. So say what we did with it, say you do others agreeing. This is Texas A&M Real Estate Research Center. Just shows their inventory again. 2.1 months is where we're at now. Still well under a 60-month inventory. So in January, even though things are slowing down and maybe some areas prices may be decreasing, still from where we're at last January, and that's what we're praising is that this January compared to the last one, the market and most of the sales we saw were well above what they were the year before. And you can see even nice sales and average sales price still was spiking up this last year. And like I said, this isn't what we're saying. This is what we go and look after we do our evaluation. Is it saying the same thing? And it really was. Obviously for us as appraisal, I'd love it if our thing just, it wouldn't be good for you guys for appraisal roll, but if it just stayed flat, that would be good for us, right? We wouldn't have a lot of protests and such, but our job is to try and be at market value and reflect what we think is going on in the market. And lastly, some of the stuff you're probably really interested in, we did on value for the city of Temple this year. So after doing all the evaluations, we came out to about $14 billion in market value, which was a pretty big jump from the year before. It looks like it's actually a little bigger jump than it was last year. So quite a bit. The average home value of A1s, which is to be all those that aren't like have any acreage and such, you can see jumped about $30,000 this last year. So up quite a bit, not as much as it was the year before, but definitely still increasing the average home value in the city of Temple. And then this is going over, it talks about what type of new product that's being put in. So all the plats and everything that you guys are approving and the houses and developments that you're approving and putting in. You can see the city of Temple is off to the left there. You open 1,240 new houses, and the average value of those new houses was $305,000. And you can kind of see how you compare to some of the other cities in the county.
That's the average value of new houses.
Of the new houses, yes. So, which would be the average selling price, yes. So you can see how y'all compare to say Killeen, for instance, had a lot less houses, but theirs was slightly above the average value was, and the same thing. You guys obviously have a lot more houses built than anybody else. That's where my appraiser spent days and days sitting off Adams measuring houses. We measure every single new house that's put out there. So we measured about 3,500 new houses this year, which the last few years has been between 2,500 and 3,000. So quite a bit more than we've had in the past. This is an important graph to know. This is, which kind of leads to from your market value to your taxable value, shows you how much is exempted each year based on exemptions. And we know that one of the big hot topics right now is how much is lost to exemptions, especially disabled veteran homesteads and such. This just shows each year, even if you don't get any brand new exemptions, if the values goes up on 100% exempted house, then that's more value. You never had it before, but that's more value that's exempted. So even if you had no new exemptions this year, our value goes up, the value, how much you're losing off the tax roll because of those exemptions is there. So you can see each one of those went up quite a bit, especially the bottom one, which is your disabled veterans exemption, went from $96 million to $123 million in taxable value.
Is there any evidence showing that those with an exemption are this question may not make sense now that I think about it. I guess that someone that's 100% disabled is going to get that exemption anywhere. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Wherever they are. Okay. Never mind. I answered my own question. Thank you.
All right. So that's your exemptions. And of course, the last graph is talking about the change in taxable value. So this dark blue graph, this is how much taxable value went up to $2.08 billion. And then of that 2.08, 0.39 billion of it was new value. So that's your new value. Basically, that's kind of exempt from your new revenue tax rate. And then of course, this is how much of the existing properties went up in value. So the existing taxable value went up from 1.23 to 1.69. And you had more new value this year than you did last year. You have the past couple of years. And of course, as we keep going up 10, 15%, if that's what the market does, And properties, a lot of them are capped out. You're gonna keep seeing this existing go up just because they're hitting their cap again each year until they finally equalize out or until the market comes down. So you're gonna keep seeing this increase. I mean, probably your property, just like mine, it's probably got a couple of years of, before it ever catches up to where the market value is.
New improvement value is obviously new construction, but is it new or additions to existing homes?
It's anything, usually it's basically, they've changed the footprint. So they've added additions, they've added a pool, they've added a workshop or a
Right.
deck, and that's new values, all that's included in here. So
As well as
including
new-
new commercial improvements, everything in there, new values, all rolled into this, right?
New property, a new
All
construction.
brand new houses, exactly, yes, ma'am.
And it also includes expired abatements.
Anybody got it?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah.
We were talking about that last week, yes. So all that to be said, from $8 million last year, it's certified to 10.1 is what we're estimating. Like Tracy said, the number changes, fluctuates as we get through the appeal season. So we were estimating 25%, but I'm sorry, I didn't change that at the bottom, said Clearwater. But that is the right numbers. So that's what we were estimating at the beginning, and that's gonna change until we get to July and see what the actual certified numbers are.
And the number I showed you earlier, I kind of back off the 22%.
I make an estimate based off what we think we're gonna lose in protests. It's a little conservative, but then I give the city managers, financial officers a chance. They get the exact all the actuals, they can see exactly, they can look at our system, see what's in it right now, and then they can make their decisions off that. So I think that's it. Do you have any questions for me? Any more questions?
Very, thank you for the presentation.
It's been interesting to watch the increase in taxable values in Bell, in our, I guess, Bell County. And I understand that in the last couple of years, there's been quite an increase in influx of people moving in, et cetera. But even prior to that, maybe 3 years prior to that, Bell County was seeing very large increases that obviously most people were not at all used to. So except for the current increase in values just over the last couple of years, say 3 years prior, what was the driving factor behind the larger percentage increases?
Well, when I first came in 2019, I believe it was, that was actually, if you go back to where the months of inventory, it's right where the months of inventory is really dropped off. It's really, about 17, you can see is where it really dropped off.
Okay.
And if you look at the taxable values from 17, 18, 19, y'all weren't getting much increase in value those couple of years. So when we
But
came on,
the inventory was, so
the inventory was down, sales were up, but before me, they weren't really making changes. So we
Okay.
made a lot of changes, started following the markets. The first year or two, as we were rectifying all of our equations and such, that's when it brought a lot of them up to where they were maybe missed from the year or two before. So the first year or two was definitely, some of it was just because we were behind on values and we didn't catch up. We weren't being, I wouldn't say aggressive as to where we weren't keeping up with it. We were just kind of slow playing open. Maybe the market wouldn't keep taking off and just kept taking off. And we were already behind the curve at that point.
So, and I know this is before your time, so I'll ask pointy questions. I'm not accusing, but why were they slow playing?
I can't say exactly why. There was a lot of things going on before I got here as to what was actually being done correctly and actually being looked at in the details of what was happening. We weren't valuing commercials nearly as well as we could have. We didn't even have a commercial department when I first got here. So I had to develop a commercial manager and teach them commercial appraiser and develop a whole department. So we had a lot of things to teach them and learn. And I think we were still playing as if, or working as if it was a very small district. It was probably 10 years prior. And we weren't making changes as we got bigger and bigger. Then at that point,
So were some of those increases at that time, let's just say that the appraisal district was 3 years behind.
Mhm.
Were increases, if a property was behind 3 years, was that 3 year gap made up for in year 4? Or was there a slow climb?
well,
That
my first year when I
that
came on, we had failed a couple of different school districts on the property value study.
You had what?
We had failed the property value study we talked about. We had failed a few school districts that year.
What's that mean?
So that means if we fail that school district, it means our value, the state came in and said our values are too low. It's like
Okay.
the grades this year. They said our values are too low. They said, you're way too low.
And they were having to make up the difference.
So then the next year, we're gonna subsequent one because we failed. And then if I didn't pass it after the second or third years, when the school districts are gonna start losing their funding. Their funding formula, they get the money from the state.
Yeah.
Depending on whether or not we're passing. So if we
Really,
can make
can I
up for some
say-
of those.
You could also say that's an effort of the state to balance budget.
It is with the rules that they put in place for us to be writing these really stringent rules that
Right.
the comptroller grades us at. And like I said, the state tells us to put values on it. They're just grading us. I don't necessarily always agree with how they grade us. But they're just grading us. In some places, they're right. We're probably low in some certain areas.
Politics, man.
I think it's really important to emphasize that point because people don't understand that the local appraisal districts are tasked with doing the appraisals here. But then after the fact, the comptroller comes in and does another appraisal. And if they don't feel like the local appraisal district got close enough to their appraisal, and it happens 2 out of 3 years, and I believe it's a rolling time period, is that true,
If you
Billy?
fail one, then the next year they do a subsequent one on just those school districts that you fail. If
And
you fail
then
2 out of
this-
3, then you start, and if you felt really bad enough, even the first one, you lose funding.
so then the
Right, how they
local
fail.
school district, the local school districts lose state funding. So there's a lot of criticism that comes to the local appraisal districts, but the state forces the process or the school districts lose funding. So that's not talked about very often, almost never in a legislative hearing where we're talking about rollback rates and
They're setting the rules that are maintained today. The comptroller sets up some of their own rules to try to grade us. And we're the only ones that send out the invitation every year to tell everybody to come tell us how they feel about it. But that's part of the job. So, but definitely the state studies one of these, we have to try our best to make sure we pass. So if we were ever going to slow play something, then we would fail our school district study the next year and possibly. That's like I said, last year we failed Temple, but we went and appealed it. Basically, like a property owner, we go in and tell them, we don't agree with how you appraise this one. We have to go over every single property, spend hours of our time going over each thing and tell them we don't agree with it and whether or not they will pass us or not. So luckily we were able to pass, but that's not always the case. So later we failed two years there for 2 years straight. We failed 2 years right when I got here. But even though I think we're doing a great job and we're keeping up with what we need to do, we're doing the best we can right now. There's still a possibility. Every year I talk to the comptroller, it's crazy, was in my office yesterday, and she said she failed more school districts last year than she's ever failed. So they fail more every year too. So I don't know how you can with what we're increasing values, but it still can happen.
All that rolls down to the local folks are always to blame, right? The appraiser's not doing it right, or the council, or the school board, or, yeah,
We don't make the rules.
no sour grapes. Anything else?
Anytime you want me to come out, please let me know. I'll come out. Feel free. I talk to you anytime you need it.
That was a great presentation, very informative.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate that.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
it. Thank you, sir.
Nice to meet you both.
All right, so, we're going to. We're going to, skip over item number 4, correct?
yes.
And we'll move right on. Are you ready for me to move?
You can see. Yeah.
So, this is Heights neighborhood district plan. We're bringing it for y'all. Is it our 11th or 12th? Or 11, I thought so. So Belinda did herself again. I had nothing to do with it. She's been very creative. Y'all haven't met Belinda. I think I failed to introduce her last time. Belinda Garcia is our neighborhood navigator, and she's done a wonderful job. She's been leading this process. She's not new to the city. She was within the Parks and Recreation Department, so it's great to have her part of this team, and is just doing a wonderful job. So as y'all know, this is our purpose and mission. It's consistent with all of our different neighborhood plans. I show you to you with each one of these. This is the Temple Heights neighborhood. As you can see, it's directly adjacent to TMed and several other districts in proximity to downtown, as well as this is a little bit closer in that you can see here. So you can see it's right there, borders what we have as the I-35 district, as well as Central, Midtown, and TMed. And then right in the middle, you see Scott Elementary School. There is a park in this area, JC Park. He does. So we have as you know, we have a pretty significant public engagement process. We have a neighborhood survey that goes out to all residents, business owners within the neighborhood. We do a series of focus groups depending upon what the neighborhood encompasses: residents, business owners, church leaders, social service organizations. We do have an external planning team we meet with throughout the process to get feedback on each of these neighborhood plans. And then what COVID brought us was MPD News, and we use that. We think it's really effective to get the plan up to the neighborhood residents to get feedback along the way as well. And finally, we present this plan before it even comes to you all to a number of boards. Nancy and her team take it to the Neighborhood Revitalization Advisory Board. Kelly takes it to the Historic Preservation Board and Planning and Zoning Commission. And just recently, we started going to the Temple Independent School District Board in advance of bringing it to you all. We think it's important to get their feedback before it's adopted. So we took that a little over a week ago to them and got feedback. So we go through, we look at all the sidewalks in the neighborhood. We rank them from either very good to very poor condition. You can see that a majority of the sidewalks in this area are predominantly anywhere from good to poor. You see a lot of green, a lot of orange. So then this is the other one. So we identify our primary neighborhood entries. You can see down there at Avenue M and 57th, as well as Avenue M and 31st. Avenue H, another major corridor off of 31st and over there close to between 41st and 43rd. And then lastly, Scott Boulevard, another primary. So this is where we go through and we look at all of the streets, how they're functioning, how they should be functioning, and then identifying that classification system for them, which leads the way into thoroughfare plan recommendations that you all see. So starting out here, this is 31st Street, this, is along the east side of the neighborhood. It's our major arterial. So you can see here what we recommend is a 4-lane roadway with a center turn lane, sidewalks on the sides with landscaping and lighting. And then this is another idea. This is another major arterial. This is where you would see that you would, with a very large right of way, you can have a large median, but still a 4-lane roadway with a shared use path of 10 feet on one side and a sidewalk on the other side. And then Avenue M, we classify as a minor arterial, very similar recommendations that you see in other neighborhood plans that we've done, like Midtown, where we have some ideas of where you could have angled parking or you could have parallel parking on both sides. So you can see that they're also providing opportunities for pedestrian walkability. And then here's another example of what it looks like existing with sidewalks, and then how you can also have that. So here's 57th Street. This is on the western border. This is what we consider a community collector. So you can see we're showing where, we have a certain amount of right-of-way, 54 to 84. You could do 2 travel lanes with a 10-foot side path and a sidewalk one side, or 2 travel lanes and a turn lane with those on either side. And these are what we consider our pedestrian connectors. And so, with all of these neighborhood plans, it'd be great to have sidewalks everywhere, but we really look at where the pedestrians are walking, A lot of this is in relation to Scott Elementary and Travis Middle School. We want to make sure we're making sure that we have safe, walkable environments for the students, as well as just in general neighborhood residents to get around their neighborhood. So we've identified both Avenue R and 33rd Street to provide those connectivity elements as well as some other streets. So we did look at a couple intersections here. We felt like there was a strong need, as we do have those sidewalks and providing that to have nice, safe crossings. Scott Elementary School is a path that people walk to, and that they cross Avenue P and 43rd Street. So we're recommending some continuous sidewalks to connect the neighborhood to Scott Elementary School, but then some really significant safe crossings with ADA ramps, painted crosswalks, stop bars and things like that, as well as a signalized crossing. 31st Street, you can see here, this is right now it is a parking lot, but we're recommending maybe providing some beautification elements. So having some lighting that's directed toward the parking lot, not into the adjacent residential areas. Screening, a tiny bit of screening there, as you can see, with that low wall and some landscaping, as well as the addition of straight trees, just to beautify that a bit, and also fixing the fence.
Where's that parking? I'm lost.
So it's right there off, I think it's 35th, right off of 35th,
okay,
is that right?
Yes.
35th.
Yeah, 33rd.
Oh, it's 33rd, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, it's kind of hard to see that map at the bottom. This is Scott Boulevard. If you remember, that's the easternmost street that people enter in. So, or I'm sorry, southernmost street of the Temple Heights neighborhood. So currently, it has wide travel lanes and shoulders, but you really don't have any pedestrian facilities. So we are recommending either a removal or reduction of the shoulder to allow for the additional planting strip, as well as the side path for pedestrians. Here, this is Skyline. So this is a road that is actually not located within the Temple Heights neighborhood. It's just outside of that. So you can see on the key map here, it's just south of the neighborhood, but sometimes we go a little bit beyond our boundaries. This is the one that's basically the street that goes right behind the shopping center with Hobby Lobby, Marshalls, Ross, all those wonderful stores that we all frequent. And there's a number of residences right now that front that. And what they're looking at is the back of commercial properties. So we thought it would be a good opportunity for us to look at, because as we're trying to provide some connectivity, it would be great to provide connectivity where these residences exist to other areas within the Temple Heights neighborhood, as well as potentially putting some screening elements there. You can see we have a nice screening wall with some landscaping, a designated turn lane, and just some basic and some minor improvements that would really beautify this area and provide some walkability and beautification elements.
I think that's wonderful.
I do
Thank
too.
Yeah, that's well traveled, I think.
Very
And
well.
It is, it really is. And we know they need those loading areas. They definitely do, but do something to make it look nicer.
Who would maintain that?
The city of Temple, this would be located within the right of way,
Okay.
unless we had some sort of agreement with the commercial property. It would just depend on that. But technically, the way that we have it in here is within the right of way. So we're gonna look at two major corridors within this neighborhood. So if y'all recall, we did a corridor analysis when we did the Central District neighborhood, and we did that specifically with Adams and Central. So we did the same thing here with 31st Street. We thought it was really important to look at that. So you have a significant number of driveways along 31st Street. You really have a lack of parking lot structure. It really encompasses a large area along the street frontage. There's a lack of streetscape. It's not uniform on this side of 31st Street, whereas on the TMed side, it is very, very uniform. There's the straight trees, the sidewalks, more consistent driveways, shared driveways. But looking at the Temple Heights side, we would really love for that to match the TMed side. So you can see there's a lot of areas where there's narrow sidewalks. You really have acceptive signs. There's no really shared signs. They're very tall for this type of corridor. There's a lack of landscaping. Whereas the adjacent development, like I said, across the street, very different that you can see in these images here. So We think that this deserves a heavier look on access management. It'd be really nice to reduce those driveways and create shared driveways, more consistent with the sidewalks connecting as well as landscaping and signage. So we also identified an area as a commercial edge. So this kind of goes in line with a lot of these where you would have some cross access easements and driveway consolidations. So you just don't have these very large driveways and have some shared parking opportunities. Have the improved landscaping as well as monument signage versus kind of the pole signage. It would be nice to have some additional parking capacity. This could be, behind the businesses, shared parking opportunities. So just an overall look at that commercial edge and some desired outcomes. The consultants did identify some areas within the Temple Heights neighborhood for redevelopment opportunities. I went ahead and made my own map because, we're showing you a lot of these concept designs and I realized I'm not showing you what the current conditions are. So I'm doing something a little different. Tell me if you don't like it. So here you can see this is right off of I-35. These are existing conditions of the area. And this is what our consultants are recommending. They are recommending a creation of a mixed-use business park. So you can see there is some additional access points to help improve the site's connection to I-35 and Avenue H there. This business park would be intended to have basically a cluster development, combining both commercial, light industrial areas together. This would really allow for, a wide array. You could have some workspaces, storage, commercial storage space, just some opportunities for a lot of businesses to relocate here or even start here. So here's some ideas for the buildings. They would be, designed similarly. They could have flex spaces to allow for some outdoor workspaces, gathering areas, even some outdoor storage opportunities, allowing for a range in uses, as well as even showrooms, tasting rooms, and some other items. Avenue M is another corridor that we evaluated with this. Another major corridor we see going through many different districts as well. So this is another one that has a large number of driveways, very few sidewalks, there's parking spaces that are actually directly off an Avenue M, and you see people backing out into the street, really dangerous. And then really a lack of streetscape whatsoever in many areas. So you can see what I was talking about there, parking along the corridor. You have those continuous driveways that are basically the width of the lot, really unsafe. You don't know where people are coming and going. A lack of sidewalks or safe crossings as well as streetscape. So you can see in the top right, I tried to kind of identify the area that the consultants identified for potential redevelopment. This could really occur in a lot of different areas of Avenue M. They just kind of chose this one as a conceptual idea of what could be done. So you can see what you could do if you redeveloped Avenue M. You would have the enhanced intersection with some safe crossings, even some traffic calming mechanisms with some different pavement, a continuous sidewalk along the way. If you did have some parking directly adjacent off the street, then you would have it to where it's angled and people back into one lane versus straight out. You'd have some nice streetscaping, trying to orient the businesses also adjacent to the roadway and have the parking behind creates more of a pedestrian experience so people can walk easily to these areas. So just an opportunity where you could see some redevelopment. Here's another one that they identified, the Scott Boulevard Neighborhood Center. Again, try to show the general idea of the area in the top right for you all. So this would be a walkable neighborhood destination that you would have buildings that engage with Scott Boulevard. So there's an opportunity for redevelopment in this area. We could improve the intersection there at Scott and 57th Street, and even have some opportunity for some townhouse or other type of housing infill. Temple Heights Park, this is something we identified. So we do have JC Park in the neighborhood right now. However, it's at the edge of the neighborhood. We don't have a centralized park within this neighborhood. So the MBD team, we were all looking at this, And TISD owns some property just south of the existing Scott Elementary School. So we thought, what a great opportunity. We can show this as potentially a combined effort to where there would be a playground that the school could use, as well as it could be for the neighborhood residents, a nice large play field, even a outdoor learning space. So we had that in there, and then we thought, let's go ahead and meet with Dr. Ott and Kim Floyd, and Nancy and I went, and they said, well, did you account for our potential future expansion? So these are the types of conversations we had, and we said, okay, we're going to go back, we'll rework this, we'll see what you think. They also had some suggestions as far as fencing goes, because they need to make sure that while they do like the idea of this being available to the neighborhood residents, they want to make sure it's safe for the children during the school day, which we completely understand. So we reevaluated it, redesigned, and I think they're really happy with it. So we show their future potential expansion, even a fire lane that they'll be required to do that they were aware of. So they still have a lot of nice outdoor space for a play field. You can see that we do show a fence there in that line around there. But so the trail could be accessed basically by the public during the day outside the fence. And then the playground area and the learning area and the play field would all be closed out during the day while they're during school hours, but could be opened up after school hours, all during the summer. There's a lot of opportunities for that.
Aaron, is that
Yes.
at Scott or at Dixon?
Scotts.
Okay.
I don't think that they have this in a funding plan right now, but they have been looking at that. They don't own the church property up there, so we stayed away, but they have bought the property or purchased the property just south of the school.
What church is that?
Do you remember the name of it? Small church. They have a pretty good relationship as far as neighborhood identification. As you see with Belinda's theme here, this neighborhood is full of pecan trees. So you have pecan pie, pecans. She went with it. She's smart. So we also did that with our neighborhood identification. So you can see that we because there's so many prominent pecan trees in this neighborhood, we use that for our neighborhood identification, both street sign toppers as well as neighborhood monumentation. Even the latest idea is to do an inlay in the sidewalks at some major intersections to further have some neighborhood identification as well as like safe routes to school options. So finally, these are, with all of these combined, we have identified all of the different projects in this area on our capital improvement projects map. And I would be happy to answer any questions y'all have.
That looks like Suzy Q's.
Italianos.
Oh,
It's what?
Italianos.
Oh, yes.
A lot of this, commercial private areas, y'all have talked to a lot of people in those areas, or just giving them ideas of their.
We haven't reached out directly to anyone, that would come later. That's just that we wanted to engage with them, but otherwise we let the plan go out to everybody and. all
So
business
for them,
owners.
you're kind of just giving them free ideas.
3 ideas. See if they stick.
Do
This would
you-
be great.
Is Scott Boulevard, or is there, whatever the correct terminology is, Richard, I'm not sure about streets. Is it, the reason it's in such bad shape, is it because there's subsoil problems or?
Scott?
I noticed the drawing included all of the cracks and things. I get calls on Scott Boulevard all the time. I mean, I don't represent the area, but for some reason people call me about Scott Boulevard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm sending it to you soon.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Okay, I'm sending to somebody.
on that one side of 31st Street to offer, this is grant for some monument signage.
Things available, but we probably could use some more targeted outreach.
You're right about there with the old drugstore with that West.
Be wet.
That's not something that Jennifer pays attention to at all. And we drove through, we drove down 31st the other day. We just sort of had our own conversation going through there. All that. All that.
fix it.
So if you know, if you thought about it, that's pretty bad.
That's the one you were showing to have, that's got the big wide street, and you're talking about possibly moving the curb in and sidewalks. That's
I
got.
believe that one.
It was
If you go to it.
And you talked about putting center, things on 31st. I mean, people complain about the traffic on 31st all the time now. How is putting something down the center, which would be beautiful, but
Of
slow
31st.
traffic even further.
Yeah, there wouldn't be anything down the center. It would be the same, this configuration. It basically is now 4 lanes of travel, this lane. I think in some cases, there's not even a center turn lane. It's mainly at
there's
intersections.
not.
And so, yeah, it's mainly the addition with 31st Street of street trees between the street and the sidewalk, and then the addition of consistent sidewalks, like you would see on the T-Mid side, on Scott and White side.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah, it's just not, it's really safe for pedestrians to have those street trees between there. It's also pretty.
I really, Scott, I really like.
That one,
Scott looks-
that's what you were talking about.
Scott looks like a racetrack, and you feel like going 60 down the street, but it's probably like that.
The streets are
It's
really.
ugly, and,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you could,
yeah, they can bounce, but
yeah.
it's just, it doesn't look like a neighborhood street.
Right, you're exactly right.
Remember the coffee
And we could
shop?
really, and that, it's because of the shoulder, I think, too. It's,
The shoulder's weird.
it is right.
Yeah.
So just think, reducing that shoulder and adding that sidewalk, I mean, but you're right. I think because of the width of it, it makes you feel like you can go.
Yeah, it feels like you should be on a highway almost. And I see people
I agree.
acting like that.
There's an awful lot of walking, pedestrian walking on Scott.
Exactly. And they walk in the shoulder.
Yes, exactly. It's very unsafe. And so that would be great. That's right.
No song?
Right. You know, it hit me when I was in here. I was like, oh, I didn't include the Temple Head song. Sorry.
Did you have a song?
We do have a song.
Sing it now.
I do not sing. I'm not even a songwriter anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did. You sang it. He wrote it and sang it this
Oh.
time.
Must not have been very good.
And
Times they are.
it's on the website. You can pull it up.
He's on that.
Very talented.
Yes.
I feel really bad that I did not. It looks like I'm upset that I didn't write it, and that's not true. I just completely forgot.
Hey, Eric, could you, cover some of the infrastructure projects that are water, sewer, wastewater, et cetera? It's way back in the back of the book,
Yeah.
on page 58, 59. Like the vision starts on there.
I know they typically
You
have
have enough
numbers.
to-
Would you-
Oh, thank you.
Just a,
Yeah, that's always something that we look at with all of these. Like,
don't you show us the pretty pictures?
yeah, I don't have it in here. I try to condense it a little bit, so I could be in front of y'all for hours talking about this plan. But yeah, so you can see, so what they have here in blue is we have some existing water lines. There are some opportunities where they show some existing to be abandoned. A lot of those right now existing in alleyways. And then some proposed new, larger, where you have maybe smaller water lines. They have some proposals for like a 12-inch water line you can see in the west side off of Avenue M right now. So there's some significant opportunities for improvements to existing water lines in this area. And if you go to,
Some of this is already funded or in the
yes,
works.
it's the planning stage, I think right now, planning, right?
I'm sorry, Mayor, it is on our list, so the project is called, Temple Heights District Utility Improvement. I believe we have, design funded, but it's an extensive project. Right now, I'm looking at an estimate of, north of $26 million. So we do not have that, that is not a funded project for construction. at this point in our current CIP, but it is something we're discussing in the budget process. And so there are some extensive water and wastewater needs in this area.
And
We shouldn't have to do it all, right? I mean, there's maybe some major things worked on.
We are working on some opportunities for phasing that.
And that will include drainage issues, like on the corner of 31st and Avenue M that floods every time it rains hard.
Drainage would be separate from water and sewer. Some of that could be accomplished through the road projects. I'm not aware of if there's a separate drainage project proposed, but we could certainly look at that unless Richard just knows off the top of his head.
We've done some small projects. The southeastern portion of this area, but not extensive, there's a lot.
Well, that particular corner is really, every time it rains hard, there's water up over the sidewalks. Obviously, you know this. So there's nothing to do. But it's clearly an issue if we're doing things in that area.
Well, as Ms. Meyer stated, we were aware of that, and we, throughout the process, we did meet with our public works team, as we do with all the city departments. So what you see in the plan set for the water and wastewater incorporates those ideas, although it's not in design, as Meyer stated, or construction funded. We do have that incorporated in.
So we just need a little $26 million. And
No big deal.
Soft 20% increase in evaluation, right? Property appraisal. That's it.
I won't pay for your water and sewer.
Appraisals go up.
They trust us.
Who's they?
Dreamer.
Good question.
Well, I am just the presenter. I have Kelly, Nancy, and Belinda here, and there's some others in the team, and they are the brains behind us. They do a fabulous job working with our consultants, KPA, Cubbies, and big thanks to them and all their hard work.
To me, this is one of the more visually impactful planning districts, right? You know, along at 31st, and then they're behind Staples and Hobby Lobby. That yeah, stuff that could, it's stuff that's super dated that I don't know, doesn't seem like super expensive to. I mean, it's all expensive. Everything's expensive. I know,
Right.
but it's not $26 million for some of the visual,
Oh, some
Thing.
of that, yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
So that's
I mean, it's not even necessarily the addition of sidewalks and some landscaping, which is really improve and reduction of driveways along those major corridors, and you would see a huge difference.
I agree. And I think the contrast between the T-Med, you know, the Shop on the Hills and the district versus the older,
Finance.
yeah,
Exactly.
paper graphics. With Bill Dennis. Yeah, oh, sorry.
That is.
I mean, that could be very, because, you know, you see that contrast in a quarter mile,
That's right,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
that'd be nice.
It really would.
Along probably our main corridor.
It's always difficult, you know, from a planning background, you know, when all development happens at one time, it's easy to coordinate a lot of those things that you see with the district.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult when they happen, you know, separately. But there's still opportunities for it, and there's ways that you can.
Remember the coffee shop that, came into us
Yes.
on the corner?
Like on 33rd.
Yeah,
You saw it? Yeah, there's just, well, maybe not just, but they are now open.
they are open, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward
I'm so excited.
People were raving about that.
Yeah, I want to.
Recent focus group, did we? I think we're with Bird Creek the third, was it yesterday? Yes, Tuesday, that's right. And we're raving about it in our Bird Creek resident focus group.
They said it was good.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent,
Yeah.
very good. The people were very nice when they came asking for.
They were.
Very
Took
nice.
them a while to
get
Yeah, well, there was pandemic hit.
Mhm.
Just about.
It's on the Avenue R, right?
Right, it's on the corner of Avenue R and. So, yeah.
That's right.
Could we
Before
write-
we revisit that item, before going to take that.
Okay, but we're still. Even adding that one, all right.
We all gone?
That's great. We went on Mother's Day.
I know. Just try it out at first streets. That was also good.
Lots of people.
Melodies is okay.
Yes, I know, it's great.
Yes.
Good.
And just so y'all know, we're currently planning the flooding district. We are getting ready to start on Barnhart District. And you'll see that, I think, on your next agenda, as a proposal coming forward. And then we're also planning in the Bird. as well. So, Mike, if you're interested in any of those needs, let's know that's your district.
Yeah, they told me something like that told me about.
And then I think Zoe is, I think silos. Yeah. Keep y'all priced.
Going for lunch.
Well, that's a nice presentation. That's good work. Be a good one to get done. All right, we're gonna throw a little bit, we're gonna add something to the workshop agenda today. Real quickly, we're gonna talk about the plan development amendment to conditional use permit for the zoning case at 3697 West FM 93. That's the corner of, is that DuBose? DuBose in 93?
Yes. I'm sorry. So this is really going back to item number 1 on the agenda to talk about regular meeting agenda items that may be needed. And I forgot that I think it might be helpful if we had a brief discussion about item number 7, which is going to be on your regular agenda tonight. Some of you may recall that this item was tabled earlier this year, I think maybe in the January or February timeframe. But the applicant has asked for it to move forward at this point. And this case was recommended for disapproval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So what that means for you all is that in order to approve it, if you so desired and you want to approve the rezoning request, it will require a super majority vote, meaning 4 out of the 5 of you need to vote in the affirmative, or the item will not pass. So I just wanted to give just a few highlights of that. Brian will have this full presentation that he'll go through in the regular meeting tonight, but just wanted to orient you to the site. So this is along FM 93. These are the Valley Ranch neighborhood. This is Central Texas Christian School. This is, I should know this. Susan, what is this one?
Valor Trail.
Valor Trail. So, and so the subject site, I believe is this,
It is there.
this section. Jessica, I did see the sign today.
You did?
Paid close attention. So what's proposed is, or what's under consideration for you tonight is, doing a rezoning that would change, the current zoning from neighborhood services, PD, and would amend that to allow, a conditional use permit for the sale of beer and wine, alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption. So in other words, a package store where you would, the convenience store would be able to sell beer and wine at their location, and a CUP, a conditional use permit, to allow fuel sales at the location. There are a couple of conditions that are recommended by staff. Notably that operation hours would be limited between 5 a.m. and 12 a.m. only. So it wouldn't be a store that would be allowed to operate 24/7. Again, the P&Z did recommend disapproval of the request. There is also quite a bit of surrounding property owner disagreement, which is also a secondary reason for triggering a supermajority requirement. So you can see we sent out a total of 34 notices to property owners that own property within 200 feet of the subject property. And the only notice that was return in agreement is from the property owner themselves, and there's 11 notices that were return in disagreement. So for those two reasons, you, again, to consider this, to consider approving this item, you'll need to have 4 out of 5 votes tonight. So that's a little bit out of the ordinary, so I wanted to share that with you in workshop and answer any questions you may have before we went downstairs.
How large is the subject property?
Gosh, that lot is
Good sense.
a couple acres. I don't know exactly. Let's see.
I can't see that far.
It is, let's see, 59,400 square feet. So that's almost an acre.
And if I remember correctly, they did say that they would increase the fence height. Isn't that right? And somehow shield some of the light pollution for those neighbors that abut that. Is that right?
Well, so that didn't make it into the conditions, and honestly, that I'm sure that if that's a condition that y'all wanted to add, because it's not part of the agreement,
Was
it should probably be
was it thinking of a
addressed.
different one?
Maybe, I don't
Huh.
know. It's been a
Okay, I thought
while.
I associated that with.
That's not a condition in there. So if a light trespass is already part of the code, but we put that in there just so it doesn't get buried.
Mhm.
Sometimes could be missed.
Well,
But as
then
far
is
as
what kind of fencing do they currently have?
none, it's really just the neighbors' privacy fences. Now, what the landscape buffer is part of the site plan. So that's a wide landscape buffer. You can see there. But if you wanted additional screening, like a 8-foot fence-crete wall or precast concrete wall or something like that.
Remember that nice fence they did over by Popeyes and Arby's
Yes, Richard knows that one really
for
well.
those folks?
Oh, looks great.
Not so nice. Not so nice. Let's not do that.
The one thing about.
I think Kathy even had to get involved.
Landscape buffer is also a drainage channel.
Yeah, that's true. So
If I could just interject about the fencing, I contacted the owner of the land 2 days ago, who then contacted the potential developer. And I did put this and let Kathy know. So, the developer was unwilling to consider precast concrete. That he's agreed to do the
landscape buffer.
landscape buffer, and he was, not just, yes, he would not say, yes, I will do anything else. And he would not say, yes, he would do an 8-foot wall. Those are the two things I asked. That doesn't mean that we can't
Well,
add that in. I'm just saying.
What about where the trash is? Like, that's gonna be, is that
That-
front corner or?
Yeah, and they do have, looks like an enclosure there that meets our code.
But Brian, if things come up in the public hearing and council wants to address them with additional requirements, they can do that.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
The other thing I asked just in advance was there any was there any wiggle room that we could adjust the hours rather than the
5 to midnight.
5 to midnight? See if they would be willing to consider, I can't go backwards,
Well-
10 to 6 or 6 to 10. And the answer was no. In other words, I accomplished nothing.
Okay.
so, reduced hours, correct me if I'm
They
wrong.
said they'd already done that with PNC.
Okay, but that doesn't necessarily, if light trespass or light pollution is a concern, they don't necessarily turn their lights off when they're
Right,
closed,
no.
right? The exterior.
Right.
Is the elevation from the back of the store going south into the neighbors, that's flat, right? There's not like a incline or anything like that.
I don't know about the topo. I mean, it's relatively flat.
Yeah.
Slight slope away from. On the houses or the.
Okay,
And then,
so it does sit a little proud versus the homes, maybe, is that what you're saying?
It's a little higher than.
it's not unusual for a gas station to have lighting at the rear, and typical, they would, but typically they're wall packs, which, they just fit on the side of the wall, and a lot of those are already screened.
Mhm.
But that's something too that you could, if you just put a condition in there related to ensuring that they eliminate light trespass, then we can work with them on how that is done. Typically just easily just screen it. There's a donut shop y'all may remember on 31st Street and Stonegate, HK Allen, that they have wall packs that were not shielded, and neighbors were concerned about that. We worked with them to make sure they put shields on it. Wasn't a big deal. So it's, that's kind of standard stuff that, if that is important to you all, that you could just clarify, once again, just so that there's nothing lost in translation from the plan development and council direction to permit and then inspections.
If the topography is relatively flat, I don't see what another fence is going to do. They already have their back fence, right?
Unless it were 8 as opposed to 6, but still.
It's like a landscape buffer.
Landscape buffer.
What kind of landscaping are they proposing?
They haven't specified. I mean, they've agreed that it, consists of trees and shrubs that, would provide a kind of an opaque buffer, but no details have been worked out. So that could be something too.
Shrubs are gonna do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if they were evergreens, you specify that they're evergreens. That's not in our code, but could be in the future.
But we can specify. it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to stress that just because I was told no, doesn't mean that we can't put things in.
Right.
They certainly
I just
don't
thought
want to
maybe
add
somebody would
costs,
alter
but
that.
Right.
y'all could add them.
Yeah.
So Brian, can I ask a question? When
Yeah.
you talked about eliminating light trespass, can you completely eliminate light trespass? I just want to make sure if we, council.
Sure. I mean, certainly on normal fixtures, what I'm not as sure about, say, lighting under the gas canopies. I mean, even then, I don't know if it could eliminate that 100%, but we could work with them to at least mitigate that. But at least on the backside, for the neighbors, I think you absolutely can. And so the shields for light bulbs, they make sure that, the light bulb isn't visible, and so the light cannot kind of expand beyond the property line where you don't see a glare. You'll actually just see the illumination of the ground below, but not a glare.
Wouldn't, for the most part, wouldn't the building shield the light from the gas canopies?
Oh, for the neighbors, yes,
Yeah.
but in terms of traffic along 93 and future businesses, probably businesses across the way. So it's not as big of an issue. In TMed, we've had some conflict because you got residential and commercial retail right there. But, in terms of shielding the canopy, that's not really probably a direct concern for any neighbors.
In many ways, this seems like a conflict between rural and urban. They just don't want to store there. They don't want to increase traffic, but they already have high traffic. They don't want the ins and outs. And to me, that's what it would appear to be. More so than,
Well, it's not just that they don't
more
want
so
the
than
ins and
alcohol
outs.
sales.
They don't want this period. I cannot stress that strongly enough, the amount of contact I've had with people who are adamant. They don't want a gas station, and they don't want the liquor sales.
Well, it's not in my backyard.
phrase it however, they just.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, I'll promise you, they're buying their liquor somewhere.
If they-
Right.
Just to be clear.
Well, I'm sorry, I said beer and wine. They're beer and wine. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Beer and
Um,
wine.
It all has the same effect on me. I
Do you
can't,
think
I
that
can't
they-
handle any of it.
do you think they're as opposed to the dental office?
No,
Going
they're
in?
not opposed, they,
So
every
it's not.
tool,
it's
every one of them
specifically-
has said, put in the dental office, put in the doctor's office, do not put a gas station, do not sell beer and wine.
What I've seen in the written.
Yeah.
That's all that. They were told that it, somebody told them that that was gonna be the dental office professional buildings. No.
Yeah.
And it was zoned, so unlike some cases we see where it's at coming in to be zoned for the first time. This property was already zoned neighborhood services with the PD explicitly excluding fuel sales. As part of that, is that accurate, Brian?
It's, I'd have to check on the fuel sales part, but the alcohol sales, it's specifically
Was-
referenced,
That was the
you know,
specific.
alcohol sales, prohibiting alcohol sales for off-premise consumption, like for a gas station, but it being okay for a restaurant,
And how long ago was that?
2004.
Okay, so before this blew up.
Yeah,
Wait,
I don't
how long
know.
ago what was done?
It's probably done all.
For the PD?
Yeah, I think it was probably,
Prohibiting alcohol sales.
yes, initially, when, presumably when Valley Ranch
Was
first was platted, first phase.
I was told the owner was 17 years ago.
Well,
That
that'd be-
possible?
About that.
Yeah, well,
It was before I- It was on the same team.
Yeah.
Should be.
So, like we said, you know, like the folks that live down on the far end is probably didn't want Valley Range to be there. Now Valley Range doesn't want neighborhood services to come in. And that, I mean, that's just normal, right? I mean, that's.
Well, except that they did buy with a neighborhood services, zoning.
Yeah.
Buy and build with neighborhood
Yeah.
services. Now we're telling them, or potentially saying there won't be neighborhood services, there'll be a gas station.
Yeah.
I know there was an issue, the part right behind the gas station there had larger lots and they rezoned it when I was on council before to shrink. So they, a lot of them didn't like that.
All right.
Well,
Yep.
so we are talking about potentially someone is gonna think about, shielding, light shielding.
I think that should be mentioned.
In evergreens.
And landscaping, heavier landscaping for sure. If.
You could, Brian, you could designate, a certain caliper tree, right?
Yes, and so our minimum is 2-inch diameter breast height, which that's a decent sized tree. And evergreens, you know, like, well, cypress, like we've got in our parking lot, those are kind of semi-evergreen, but they're, tend to grow fairly fast, most of them. So,
Brian, is it unreasonable that between first and second reading that they could bring back a site plan that had a more specific landscaping plan attached?
I don't think so. I mean, they should be able to. If they can't, then they're not that close to developing anyway.
That maybe council could give some general direction of what you
Sure.
want to see the site plan look like, the landscaping plan, instead of trying to get the language just right in the motion. Just be clear that you, before it's approved on second reading, you want to see the specific landscape plan, so you want that to include evergreens or whatever it is you want to see it done, and then they can work that up, and then that way we have an exhibit to attach to the ordinance on second reading, and I think that would be cleaner and less likely for misunderstandings to take place in what you all want to see and what gets implemented.
Is it unreasonable to ask for an 8-foot fence and evergreens?
I mean, I don't know if it's unreasonable, but it may be unnecessary if the tree, you know, buffer.
If the evergreens are big enough?
Yeah, if you've got, it's a thick or wide landscape buffer. And so if they have multiple levels of it, then that would probably be more effective than just an 8-foot fence that,
And more attractive.
And
More
also
attractive.
keep in mind that when you put a fence on a fence, that it typically creates a maintenance issue.
so either
That can be
No
more,
man's
gap or
We had that at Valor Estates. They proposed 2 fences 30 feet apart.
and even when you put a gap in there, you know, it gets to that, you know, it will probably become a code compliance case because it's easy to mow, you know, to your fence, but nobody likes to go around and mow in between.
Also, typically,
Can't get there.
That's right.
typically larger shrubs, right? Am I correct? Larger shrubs might provide a better screen than trees.
Yes, and so I think the ideal, when you look at,
Staggered over.
you look at, effective codes in other cities, which we're working on that in ours, because our buffering standards, that's why we're having these conversations, because they're just not sufficient. An ideal buffer is wide like this and consists of layers of shrubs and trees. So that, you get a full combo of year-round screening.
Okay.
Another reason to have a detailed plan is not only drainage channel, there's a sewer line in that back.
Okay.
So if someone makes a recommendation, it should say buffered shrubs and evergreens.
Well, and I think to Ms. Meyer's point, and we want a detailed site plan for approval at second reading.
Oh,
That way you can see
absolutely.
that, yeah.
Oh,
Yes, that language would be helpful in terms of setting the parameters.
Yeah.
So they
So-
don't, there's
So-
not.
So
So light
detailed site-
trespass shielding, detailed site plan, that
Buffer,
includes the buffer of trees and shrubs, mature
staggered,
shrubs,
staggered,
not 3-gallon shrubs. 15
right,
gallon
and
shrubs.
staggered. That was your word, right? Staggered?
Richard, where's the sewer line? Is that around the middle of that or?
Generally, it has been on the top bank on the north side of,
You don't want to put a
Drainage
bunch
channel.
of shrubs over the top of that.
that's
Yeah.
why we need to see a plan.
It might
Yes,
grow fast. if they-
and we do,
At least it'll suck it up and.
Into that site plan, also, the light trespass, you talked about that.
I mean, it could put a note on there in terms of, just to clarify, but since we're not gonna have additional elevations that include the lighting, they could put something on the elevations in terms of type,
What did you call
typical
those again?
fixture. Sorry,
What did you call the covers that you could put on?
just, full cutoff fixtures or, screen shielded fixtures.
Councilmember Walker, I would recommend the light trespass as a condition of the PD versus just relying on the site plan. So I would recommend if that's something you'll want to do, to add it as a condition. So in addition to the 3 that are proposed, or, number 4 would be that, Brian, how would you say that the site would be developed in a way that light trespass was eliminated?
Yes, just,
And then also would 5 be bringing back the site plan and then maintaining substantial compliance with the site plan?
Yes, and when y'all are taking pictures, we will work on some language for you to make this easier.
But we sorry,
Yeah.
but equally, we do need to move on. So, council, everybody good with everyone's thoughts around that? Okay. So, it is 3:21. I will close this regular meeting of the City Council of Kentucky Workshop. And we will now enter into executive session. Item 6, I can read these in together. Item 6 reads pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The city council will enter into executive session to seek advice from its attorney about pending litigation involving Bend of the River. Public discussion of this matter is not in the best interest of the city. No final action will be taken. Item 7 reads pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071. City council will enter into executive session to conduct a private consultation with this attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the council under the Texas disciplinary rule of professional conduct of the state bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas local government code, chapter 551.